Rich and I both work with Fusion, a ministry that helps local churches reach university students. And one of the major things that we often talk about in the discipleship of young people is around calling, wrestling with the reality of the call of God on their lives. Rich, this is something you're passionate about and have been for a long time. Why? Why talk about calling?
It's much more than a buzzword. It's to do with our whole identity in God. And when we get hold of that, our lives become both more complicated, but also more free. God has called us. It starts there. It's not about us necessarily finding our calling. Our calling belongs in God, and He has called us to Himself. You know, we weren't our idea. We were His idea.
Sure.
So we are here not by accident, but because we were purposed and willed by God in His heart before we were born. And our lives are about discovering quite how deep that depth of love, of God's love, goes for us. And so that's at the heart of calling. And out of that, we get to participate with Him and with His people and with creation. And that's the adventure of calling.
So you've been saying yes to the call of God for a pretty long time so far in your life. But, you know, we're passionate about inviting students and young people to say yes to the call of God today. When it's really on the ground, when the rubber hits the road, when you're actually trying to walk this thing out, what do you mean? What does calling look like in action, following after God's call on your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I said yes again this morning.
Right.
Every day. When did you become a Christian? I became a Christian this morning. And it's that reality, because not all days are equal. Some days are horrendous. Some seasons are horrendous. What happens to the call of God when it feels like life is going in a different direction to what we hope for and it doesn't feel good? Well, the reality is calling is still being outworked.
Yes.
So how do we navigate life's ups and downs? What does it mean to live life fully for God, recognizing that we don't know what's around the next corner, but we know that God has gone before us? And that He holds the future and we can trust Him. So I think particularly this generation need to know they're not alone. They're not on their own. God has plans and purposes for them, but they are different to maybe what we think they are at times. And it's how do we trust Him with our life as it is, knowing that what we do today, the decisions we make today, are connected to our calling and how we love God and find purpose.
And now you wrote a book about this, and your book is both a story of your own life and a story of the call of God that actually could affect all of our lives, were we to hear and respond. And you've got a mixture of chapters in there, Rich, because it's not all kind of good news stories, really. There's stuff about money, there's stuff about pain, there's stuff about adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I absolutely didn't want to create a rose-tinted view of calling. I think when we enter into life, we enter into the messiness of life. And when we follow Jesus into the mess. And some of that is maybe of our own doing sometimes.
Yeah.
Other times, you know, we live in a fallen world, and sometimes that world falls on us and there's nothing we can do about it. And so we have to find a way through with God. So yeah, I explore all kinds of things to do with how do we navigate these different seasons. That God wants us to run our race well, but that race often feels like we're up and down mountains, through valleys, crossing streams, muddy fields. It's not a flat marathon. It's more like hill running or mountain climbing, and you know. So I wanted to be really honest about these things we will surely face in life, and the question is, how will we address them? How will we face them well? It doesn't mean that God's not with us when things go wrong. It just means that life has got a bit harder. And, you know, when pain comes knocking at our door, what do we do?
Right.
How do we respond? What does that mean for our calling? And I've told some stories that hopefully will validate other people's stories. We've all got stories that, you know, my wife used to say, everybody's got a story that can make you cry. You know, there's brokenness all around us, and if we're honest, it's in us. So how does that not get in the way of our pursuit of God and our calling? So I try to address some of those things, as well as the fun stuff and the adventurous stuff and the joy that comes from following God wholeheartedly.
And it's true that the book that I've read it, and some chapters genuinely made me cry, and some of them just strengthened my faith in what could be possible in Jesus. So you wrote the book for everybody?
I wrote it particularly for students and young adults.
Yeah.
But I found that most people have enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it's called A Call Less Ordinary. And that is not only Rich's story, it's the story of the movement we're caught up in as Fusion. And it is a story worth telling, sharing, and discovering what your part in the story of God is as well. So A Call Less Ordinary by Rich Wilson is already out and available now.